and welcome back to another very special episode of The Breakdown, X's and O's. And we're not talking hugs and kisses, ladies and gentlemen, because today I am not joined by the 5-year NFL veteran, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy I like to call Nate Ness. You can call Nate Ness. I'm joined by somebody else, somebody with similar, if not more passion than I have for the New Orleans Saints. You see the jersey I'm wearing today. You see the title, which is why you clicked on to the live stream. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce, my co-host for tonight's show and my partner in crime, Mr. Ty Gulman.
What's up? It's been a long time.
It has. I'm glad you made the appearance because 2 weeks ago we had Kevin G on the show. If you know, you know.
Oh man, all love for Noah. Yeah. Don't talk to him about strength of schedule though. Don't talk to him about that.
You should have seen what we were doing today. Me and him were playing a game earlier, and I was about to start Nacho Libre because I was watching some Jack Black content. I started calling him Nacho Libre. He was getting so mad at me. But Ty, what's up, man? How you been? How's the day treating you? And what's going on?
I've been good. Just trying to get through the last semester of school. Been busy calling ball games too for our student sports network. So, thank you, Tanner. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tanner. Good old Tanner just sitting right beside you, commenting away. That's funny. But no, I've been good. Just trying to get through school, getting to call some Mississippi State ball games, so that's been fun. But I miss being on the show. It's been since the college football playoff, I think.
Ooh, has it been that long?
I think that was the last time was college football playoffs.
I'd have to look through all the live streams. I don't know.
I think
that was Nate's been missing a lot more than just since the playoffs.
Yeah, but I haven't been able to do it, remember, because, the show's on Tuesdays, so a lot of the times I was at calling basketball games and stuff like that for Mississippi State, so I just hadn't been on in a while. I think it was the playoffs, so I think that was the last time. It's good to be back, though. Tanner is lighting up the comments section.
I'd say like Nacho Leche.
Okay.
I am. Oh, that was also another funny thing. As he was playing the game, I was giving him motivation, so I started playing the Nacho Libre soundtrack. And he goes, I am not Nacho Libre. I'm about to crash out. If you haven't seen Nacho Libre, what are you doing with your life? That is a movie that has to be watched. Because get that segment out of my face. We're about to go into the first segment of today's show because I'm not playing around, Ty. I'm ready to yap. I know you are, and I'm ready to rant.
Yant?
Yeah, I guess I just mixed the two. I mean, that might be new slang now.
New slang?
I just accidentally discovered it.
I like that.
I know. Maybe we should put it on a t-shirt.
Maybe so.
But before we do that, let me introduce the first segment of today's show. It is not Nate Necessary Notes. It is the devastating news. With sound effect.
I like that.
All right, Ty. We got some things to discuss. Because we are now on the horizon of the 2025 NFL Draft, which is April 24th. If you are with us and will be with us April 22nd, we will have our draft special. It will be April 22nd, like I said, on the Tuesday. And we'll go over our mock draft 3.0, the last one of the season. So please don't miss it if you're interested in more draft content because that's just about what we're going to talk about tonight. A lot of draft stuff. So let's talk about it. Many draft analysts, I don't know if you've seen this time, but I'm always in the news watching film on prospects, watching people talk about the prospects, just seeing where the owners and GMs and the staff's heads are when it comes to the draft to see who they might possibly take in the first round. But a lot of people are now having Shedeur Sanders fall from the top 3, the top 5. I would say top 3. I don't think 4 and 5 would take Shedeur. So there's a lot to be discovered, to uncover in this scenario. I don't think it's likely. We'll talk about it. But Shedeur falling would not surprise me. Nate thinks Shedeur is the best quarterback in this draft class. I disagree. We had that conversation. I don't think Shedeur is 1 or 2 in my draft this year. It's just about the way I've witnessed it. He has great poise and accuracy. He's great in the pocket, but the dude cannot read a defense whatsoever. And he never throws the ball where his receivers are going. He always just throws it right where they're at. I mean, it's just, and that's why Travis Hunter was so great, because he could get open and there was always a ball. Shedeur didn't have to anticipate where he was going. He could just stand still in the end zone. I mean, a lot of passes, if you go back and watch his film, you will see Travis Hunter standing in the end zone like this and a pass thrown to him. It's never Travis Hunter on the run throwing it to him. Now, a lot of times that did happen, but I'm just like, there's a lot of pros and cons to any prospect. So if you are a team that's willing to take a look at him and say, hey, look, he's got great accuracy, he's got great poise when he's in the pocket. A lot of people like to argue, oh, he was the most sacked quarterback in 2023 and then one of the tops in 2024. In 2023, I'll give it to you. His O-lineman wasn't that great. But this past year, we cannot keep blaming the O-line. We can't keep giving that narrative. His dad, Coach Prime, went out and got the best transfers he could possibly ask for in Colorado to fill that O-line. It is Shedeur's fault because an NFL O-lineman could not stop college players for more than 10 seconds. He would sit there and sit there and sit there because his first read is never right. The dude can't read a defense. He would cause him to scramble all around the football field behind that O-line. How long do you want the dang O-line to hold for without causing a penalty? I mean, you can't sit there and expect somebody to be better in sacks when it's not the O-line's fault. I mean, why are we sitting here? I know the O-line is the big forefront for not causing sacks. But when you run out the pocket, there's only so much the O-line can do. When you sit there and wait for as long as you do before throwing the ball, there's only so much the O-line can do. Before we get into where we think Shedeur will fall to, do you have anything you see in Shedeur, what you like about him? I know you're big on Shedeur. What do you like about him? What do you see in him? Just tell me your overall thoughts for him as a prospect.
I think he's very talented. Same with his teammate, almost you want to say his brother, and Travis Hunter, but that's for another discussion. Talking about Shedeur right now, I think he's very talented. I think his athleticism is incredible. I think he throws a good ball. And the pocket thing, you make a good point. I mean, yeah, he's scrambled a lot when he hasn't had to, and that's kind of affected. You're right. You can only do so much when you scramble out of the pocket. Protection doesn't always break down. Just sometimes he thinks he has to get out and run to be able to make a play and get outside the pocket to make a play. That's going to be an issue at the next level. You need to be able to stay in the pocket, at least as long as you can. And if he can learn to do that, then his athleticism is going to take him a very long way, and he could have a very special career. I think a majority for why he's, and he had a great year. We're not here to discredit any. I'm sure, Connor, you're not discrediting any of what he did last year. He's in the Heisman race, obviously. So, I mean, he's not a bad quarterback at all. There's just some he's got to play like a next level quarterback. He's got to play like an NFL quarterback. He's got to be able to stay in the pocket and stay, not stay as aggressive when it comes out to rolling out. He's got to be able to stay conservative in the pocket and stay locked down and make sure he's able to, obviously you got to read a defense at the next level. Your legs are not going to only take you, so many places. You look back at like Johnny Manziel, and I'm not comparing, Johnny Manziel and Shedeur Sanders. They were both incredible quarterbacks in college. But you look back at Johnny Manziel, and we talk about Shedeur's athleticism. Well, Johnny had his athleticism and maybe more so. And what does he do when he gets in the league? And that, now it's a different conversation, but he didn't he didn't watch film. He didn't do anything. There's plenty of documented stuff saying that he didn't watch film at all and did nothing really to prepare for ball games and prepare to be an NFL quarterback. And that's why his talent got spoiled. Now, I think Shedeur is he's already got his dad, right? That was it's an NFL vet. And it's one of the greatest, seriously, one of the greatest athletes in all of sports history, and is one of the greatest. Was a fantastic defensive back, but he's got that pro experience. So there's a lot of talk with him and his dad have just been really pushy about where he wants to go. But I think ultimately, wherever he gets drafted, right, I think he will be able to profit or he'll be able to get better because I think his dad can help him out with kind of maturing a little bit. And, but that's the main thing is he's just going to have to mature and realize, getting into the big leagues now, you got to settle in, got to do the right things. I think though, if he can settle in, be able to, do the small things as an NFL quarterback, be able to read a defense. That might sound like it's a big thing, but it can be fairly simple. And nobody, people might not realize that, but it can be very simple to, just read what a defense has to offer. And if you put the work in and watching film, it does not take very long to, maybe figure that out. So, his athleticism, if he can combat that with being able to understand defenses and be locked down in the pocket and not be so ready to go to run outside of the pocket, if he can figure that out, I think he could be a fantastic quarterback. And to me, I think he has the most potential out of any quarterback in this draft.
And you talk about his dad. His dad is probably worst case scenario for a defender in the NFL. I mean, his dad did it all. So
yeah,
there's certain things his dad can teach him, but there's certain things he can't. His dad was never a QB. He can't tell him to think like a QB. He can tell him how to think like how a defensive back reads a QB, but he can't tell him the other way around, how a QB reads. And maybe he can, but there's a limit where Deion's knowledge stops. So you get into the conversation of what team is he going to go to that will take a chance? You say he's got the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this draft class, correct?
Yeah.
What team is going to look at that and say, hey, I want to fix Shedeur's maybe not being able to read. His first read's always wrong. I want to be able to find his strengths, good poise. Great. If he can sit in the pocket, he's super accurate. He's good on the run too. But if he can just stay in the pocket and not allow his legs to just make the first decision, a team might look at that and it might be golden for them. So let's talk about those teams that might look at Shedeur as the highest ceiling, a piece of candy they want in their football team. We talked about it before the show, and it was pretty much clear when I talked about Cam Moore's pro day the other day. And we discussed, I think Nate was on the show, on it's going to be a pretty hefty package for somebody to trade up for the first overall pick because Cam Moore balled out that so well during his pro day. The Titans are probably going to draft him at number 1. So where does that go? You got to the Cleveland Browns pick. Okay. At this point, you have Travis Hunter, probably the best prospect graded in this draft. Abdul Carter. And then you have Shedeur Sanders. In my mind, you could go Abdul Carter. You could go 3 ways here, whichever way you want. But if we break it down, I don't think you go defense. I think you most definitely have to go offense if you are the Cleveland Browns. You go defense, you have so much to work on offense, and you will procrastinate drafting offense, and it will be just as bad as it was for you last year. There is no return in sight for Deshaun Watson, your starting quarterback. And let's keep in mind what the Browns owner said about Deshaun Watson. While he's still in the organization, we took a big swing and missed. You don't say that to a player that is still in your organization.
Nope.
How long is Deshaun Watson going to be a Brown? It could be soon. If you're already talking about him like that, it could be tomorrow. Not really, because he's injured. When he gets off injury list, it could be till then. In my mind, you have one other quarterback in your depth chart. Small hands Kenny Pickett. I call him that every breakdown show. I refer to him. You have to have two quarterbacks going into a game. You are most definitely drafting one this draft. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to draft a quarterback this draft class. If you do not, it will be detrimental for your organization, more so than it already is. You might take a swing on a rookie QB, but it won't be as bad of a swing you took with Deshaun Watson. So let's look at why the Browns took Kenny Pickett. Why did they trade for Kenny Pickett? Because they had someone promising like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, right? They traded him and a pick for Kenny Pickett. The Cleveland Browns are wanting somebody with starting experience, the years he started on Pittsburgh, somebody that could come in and just play for him as a placeholder. Okay? Keep in mind, placeholder. Kenny Pickett is not your long-term solution at quarterback. There's no way. At number 2, and I might be alluding to April 22nd if you will join us, Shedeur Sanders is drafted to the Cleveland Browns. This is what makes the most sense to me. All these analysts say he's fallen. Mel Kiper says he's fallen to 9, which we'll get to that. Shedeur at 2 is the most sense to me. You say he has the highest ceiling. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I am trying at every expense to unlock that. I want that highest ceiling Shedeur. If I can teach him to read, if I can teach him to make quick decisions and not the wrong ones, he might be my long-term quarterback. Because right now you don't have it. And you haven't had it. Ty, at number 2, what's your thoughts of Shedeur Sanders becoming a Cleveland Brown?
He definitely should become a Cleveland Brown. I don't see why they would go anywhere else. They could go, like you mentioned, Abdul Carter. They could go, the 1-2 offense defense, Travis Hunter. But it just makes no sense. You don't have a quarterback, right? Kenny Pickett, unless something unprecedented happens in his football career to where he becomes a fantastic quarterback and plays like he hasn't played before in the NFL, he's not, like you said, he's not your long-term guy. And Deshaun Watson, he's injured. Obviously their owner already said something about him like that. That's fine. His owner saying that that's kind of funny because that's the real truth. I mean, you can't really say that about a player that's still in your organization, but that's the real truth. They took a swing and they missed big time. They missed big time. I mean, it's almost like, yeah, I mean, they missed big time on him. So yeah, you have to draft a quarterback because, like I said, Kenny Pickett, unless something major happens, no. He's not going to be your guy. Deshaun Watson, even if he comes back, fairly all right from injury, I think he's way past his prime now. The great years that he had in Houston before all that scandal stuff happened with him. I'm not even going to go into that, but before the years in Houston, he's way past those years. So you have to go. I think you have to go Shedeur. The only other route you would go would still be at quarterback. And if you believe that Jackson Dart is going to be better, then you would go Jackson Dart. But that would be the only other way I think you could go would be Jackson Dart. But to me, what's smart is Shedeur is what I said. I think he has the best ceiling, the highest ceiling out of any quarterback in this draft. I think you have to go Shedeur. If the Titans go Cam Ward, I think it's automatic you go Shedeur. So I completely agree with you. I don't really understand why they wouldn't go with Shedeur Sanders, or even if they somehow passed up on him, I don't see why they would draft any other quarterback like Jackson Dart or somebody else.
A lot of analysts have Abdul Carter at 2, which wouldn't be a terrible pick, but it's not the best pick in my opinion. You have to go offense. But let's say they decide to go offense, but they go a different route. They take someone like Travis Hunter, which is my second likely scenario. Best prospect in this draft. You take Travis Hunter, okay? Then it leaves number 3, the Giants. And then you're like, do we take Shedeur? You have Russell Wilson on a 1-year deal. You have Jameis Winston on a 2-year deal. You have Tommy DeVito on a 1-year deal. You don't have long-term solutions either at quarterback. I have spent hours watching and reading New York Giants. I'm not a Giants fan, but I've been watching New York Giants talk, what their owners and GMs think, for hours just to decide who will go at 3 if this scenario is possible. And I'm going to make a take right here, and I think Ty agrees with me on this. If Shedeur Sanders was available at number 3, the New York Giants would simply pass on him. You would not take Shedeur at 3 if he was available. It won't happen. It will not happen based on everything I've read and came up with. And trust me, I have spent a long time looking at number 3. Shedeur does not go 3. It doesn't make sense for me. There's just bigger needs, and you don't go Shedeur at 3.
I'll talk about it just for a second. Yeah, I don't think you would go Shedeur at 3, especially with signing. Well, they just signed Russ and they just signed Jameis, right? Shout out Jameis. That's the jersey you're wearing right now, by the way, for anybody that didn't know.
Yes,
sir. Yeah, you just signed those 2. I think you're buying yourself a year until maybe next year or something like that, or maybe 2 years. There's a guy that you already have looked at for the longer future, and maybe you would like. But yeah, I don't think the Giants would go Shedeur right there. I don't think they would go quarterback right there. But I will say the odds wouldn't agree with either of us. So the DraftKings odds to draft Shedeur Sanders has the Giants at number 2 to draft Shedeur at plus 350. Now I'll tell you the rest of that list a little bit later. I'll tell the audience about that a little bit later. but I will say the odds would say that they would be the second most inclined to draft Shedeur. So that's something interesting to watch or to think about with right there. But just us 2, no, I agree with you. I don't.
The Browns are 3 though, right?
Yes, the Browns are 3 at plus 425. I'm looking at right here, plus 425.
So the odds are against us, Ty.
At least for the Giants, yeah. At least for the Giants situation. But I don't. Yeah, I agree with you. I just don't think the Giants would draft a quarterback there. I think with signing those 2 guys, they bought themselves some time.
So then we keep going until we get to who Mel Kiper thinks Shedeur Sanders is going to. So Patriots, Jaguars, Raiders, that's your 4th, 5th, and 6th overall picks. They won't draft a quarterback. They've gotten their franchise guy to pretty good deals, unless you're the Patriots who just drafted Drake May last year. And then we get to an interesting scenario. Number 7. You just signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal this past offseason. You have Tyrod Taylor in the depth chart as like a veteran presence to help out Justin Fields, maybe progress, because he's still pretty young. He still can be progressed. And we saw that with somebody similar, maybe like a Sam Darnold in Minnesota. Dude could be considered veteran-like, but he still learned a lot in his tenure there and his stop there. And now he made some money going to Seattle. So what do you think about the possibility of Shedeur sneaking in at number 7 to the Jets?
I think that could most definitely happen. If he somehow slips all the way to 7, what else would the Jets – I mean, I think it could happen. I really the Justin Fields thing is just I don't know. I'm not. I mean, we had Justin Fields preseason last year was practicing returning kicks for Pittsburgh. I mean, so obviously I don't know that Pittsburgh saw too much in him, and I don't know that I really see too much in him. I mean, I understand maybe Tyrod Taylor can help him out. I don't know if it's going to work out for him. But you pay him. I mean, 2 years, $40 million is a pretty solid amount of money to pay a dude that really hasn't done as much that as he would as one would have liked in the NFL. So you look at that and you can kind of think, well, hey, I guess they're probably going to stick to Justin Fields. I think it would be perfect for him to pull the trigger on Sanders right there. But I will say, offensive tackle would probably be their move if they didn't go Shedeur Sanders. And, something with that Field struggled with in Chicago was he was running for his life, right? So maybe they try and take the chance to, draft an offensive lineman right there and help him out. And that way you can kind of try and solidify your line with with Tyrod Taylor. Maybe he can help him out. And Justin Fields has a lot of talent for sure, and he's been in the league for a little bit, so I'm sure he's understands how the NFL works and how to read defenses and stuff like that. It just hadn't quite worked out for him. So if they really believe in Justin Fields, and I would go, I see no reason to draft Shedeur Sanders. Just me. I don't find myself believing in Justin Fields as much, so I would take Shedeur Sanders right there. But just me, I would take Shedeur. But I think the Jets will probably be more inclined to take an offensive lineman in that situation.
So we keep going, and at 8, that's your Carolina Panthers, and they have the guy they think is going to take them to the promised land, Bryce Young. We'll see how that pans out. So they're not going to take a quarterback at 8. It'd be dumb if they did. And then you get to Mel Kiper's take. Originally, he had Jackson Dart going number 9 to the Saints, and I would have thrown up. I would have probably spooned my eyes out and passed out at the same time. And then now we get Shedeur at number 9. It's great, right? We get our quarterback of the future. We finally get a guy that can bring the New Orleans Saints back to the New Orleans Saints. No. I'm going to tell you that. I have a big problem if Shedeur. I told you I'd pass out and throw up and do all sorts of things if Jackson Dart got drafted at 9. I think Jackson Dart's a better prospect than Shedeur is. And I've been pretty spot on with quarterbacks these past couple of years. Now, Shedeur has a chance to be great, but not on the New Orleans Saints. Heck no. The last time we've had a good quarterback was a dude we took without a left shoulder, and he ended up just being great. So, you don't take Shedeur at 9. I have a big problem with this. Some people don't. Okay? There are more pressing needs for your team at number 9. And we're going to get to, in just a little bit, who the Saints will draft at number 9. But right now, it's just Shedeur at 9.
Mm-hmm.
You don't draft Shedeur at 9. There is no way. Contractually, it makes no sense whatsoever. You just put back Derek Carr's contract a little bit more so that you could keep him for that much longer. So you're going to keep Derek Carr. Spencer Rattler. All the good things Kellen Moore has to say about Spencer Rattler. We know that there is light at the end of the tunnel for him in a New Orleans Saints uniform. Whether that's after Derek Carr, whether that's him competing for a starting spot after Derek Carr, we'll have to see what happens. But Spencer Rattler will not be competing against Shedeur Sanders. Because if you draft Shedeur Sanders, it might be a big mistake. If you're going to take a risk on somebody, take a risk on somebody you need. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't going to fix your problems in New Orleans.
Yeah, I wouldn't be as angry as you are with this. I don't think we should draft a quarterback at all. Not Jackson Dart, not Shedeur Sanders, not anybody, at least in the first round. I don't see how that would make any sense for us. But with Shedeur, I've said that he's got the best, the highest ceiling. I wouldn't be as upset, at least from the fact that we just got, I think, who's going to be a really good quarterback. But like you said, I think we have more pressing needs right now, and I think we can we can buy ourselves some time until we get out of the crap that we're in with Derek Carr, and but so the Derek Carr stuff, yeah, get out of the crap with him. But I think Spencer Rattler's got a really good future with us. I mean, you go back and watch, right, some of the games last year that he played in. I like to go back to the Green Bay game. And a lot of people will be like, oh, you got shut out for the first time. I think that was since 2003. How could he have ever looked good in that game? I mean, he was playing with Walmart employees that game. I mean, who was it? His starting receiver was what, Mason Tipton? His starting running back was, I believe, it was probably Kendre Miller because Kamara was out. So, he didn't have anybody. And I thought he put some really good tape out. I thought he looked really good against Green Bay. And I thought, at times, definitely too, in the preseason, I thought he looked pretty good in the preseason. So I'm not all out on, and I don't know that a lot of Saints fans are all out on Spencer Rattler either. I think he's got a pretty bright future. I think he could be really good for New Orleans. So I don't think we draft Shedeur. If he's still there, and I would have it in the back of my mind, like, okay, if we draft him, I'm not going to be as upset about this, but I still don't think we should. But, in the front of my mind, I would be like, we do not need to do this. This would be dumb. We need to fill out what we already don't have on this roster, which is, depth. We don't have any depth. That's why we sucked when we got hurt last year, because we don't have any depth. So we need to fill out some spots. Maybe get an edge to replace Cam Jordan, who's probably going to retire next year. I never know with Cam Jordan. He'll probably never retire as long as I don't know. But I think
Jordan.
we need to go. Yeah, yeah. We need to go somewhere else with. We need to go somewhere else with that number 9 pick. I think we would need to draft either an edge, maybe an offensive lineman, a safety, and that's a conversation for another time. But no, I think if Shedeur did fall to us, probably shouldn't draft him. I just think you have too much going on with Derek Carr money-wise, and I think you have too much of a future with Spencer Rattler. Now, I do want to mention before, I was alluding to it earlier, right? The draft odds. Can I talk about that now? The draft odds.
Go ahead.
So the draft odds. We talked about the Giants had the number 2, and I was like, oh, I'll wait till the number 1. In per DraftKings, the number 1 team that's most inclined to pick Shedeur Sanders is the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, say it ain't so.
So that's 50 points above the New York Giants. So Saints are number 1 in betting odds to pick Shedeur Sanders. And then, like you mentioned, Mel Kiper has him going there. I've seen
Those
a couple of other.
Mel Kiper.
Yeah,
that's the odds.
I mean, but I've seen seen a couple of other analysts had him at 9. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure, like I mentioned, some Saints fans might be upset. Some Saints fans might be okay with it, but I just think we need to go somewhere else.
I agree. And before I throw up and pass out at the same time, before I heard those words of the Saints becoming the number 1 odds to draft Shedeur, I'd like to introduce the number 1 odds for you to draft when it comes to you being safe on the road. And that's Erie Insurance.
Here's to the grown-ups. Your car is now your office, stage, nursery, Shh, sorry. Erie Insurance offers products that lots of other companies don't. That's a big deal. And it's a good deal, too. And with Erie, you get your own independent agent, not a giant corporate call center or some online robot. You meet with a real person, like this.
Your local Erie agent is Building Block Insurance Group. Get a quote today at 704-464-4544.
Erie Insurance.
And when you call Jeff Retepney at 704-464-4544, go ahead and ask him where he thinks Shedeur Sanders lands in his first-round mock draft.
You think Jeff Retepney has a first-round mock draft?
I don't know. If he does, I need to bring him on the show.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Retepney's mock draft. I guess it'd be 1.0. We haven't really introduced it.
Yeah, 1.0. But it probably would be the best mock draft of all mock drafts.
It might.
Right?
I mean,
he's got the best insurance of all insurance.
Yeah.
Best mock draft of all mock drafts, most likely.
I mean, he's definitely protecting some of them prospects on the road. That's for sure.
Yes, he is.
Maybe not the ones going 120 plus mile per hour on the roads and
George Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Whoops. Sorry.
Well, Ty, we ended on it. We're going to start on this segment. But before we do, my stomach's growling. I'm getting a little hungry. And I'm ready to eat a little gravy with C. Davy. Are you hungry, Ty?
Okay. All right. Yeah, I hadn't had supper, so.
I haven't either. That's why my stomach was growling. I really wasn't lying, like joking about that. It actually was
Your
growling.
stomach's growling?
Yeah. It's just because I am hungry. But you're wearing Saints paraphernalia. I'm wearing Saints gear. So who do the Saints take at number 9? And I'm going to tell you what, it ain't Shedeur Sanders like Mel Kiper says. His 4.0, once it becomes a 5.0, you might not see that name right next to the New Orleans Saints. So, Ty, who do the Saints take at number 9? They have the 9th pick.
Okay. Yeah.
You can take over if you want to, but
I'm going to
say a couple of things because we're both going to go the same direction. Before we go that direction, I don't want to have to turn back to U-turn and go back. I want to cover something before we get to it because we're going to go the same direction. My last 2 mock drafts, if you have been here watching it with me, and I thank you for that, I have had Arizona wideout Teteroy McMillan going to the New Orleans Saints at number 9. Last year, if you go back to my first 2 mock drafts of 2024, I had the New Orleans Saints taking defensive end Jared Verse out of Florida State, which would have been the single best pick of that first round at number 14. Let me say that. The defensive rookie of the year would have been the single best. We got a really good gem, but Jared Verse would have been better. Easily. He would have been a better pick.
Yeah.
This year, I'm doing the exact same thing. My first 2 mock drafts have swayed you the wrong way because now my first 2, I get to have fun. I get to kind of research a little bit and say, look, this is who I want them to pick. But now I have to really think like Mickey Loomis, which is about half of my brain, and decide who I think the New Orleans Saints will draft. And it will not be a wideout. You signed Brandon Cooks, the person you drafted in 2014, who is now 30-plus years of age, to be your wide receiver number 2, to like a $13 million deal for 2 years. You're paying him $6.5 million for a wide receiver. I don't get it. Whatever. New Orleans Saints are going to New Orleans Saints. But at this point in my mock drafts, the more research I do, you're not going to draft a wide receiver at 9. It just... as much as I'd love to see where Chris Olave is going to end up going, you're not going to. But if Brandon Cooks ends up being your wide receiver number 1, you're not going to make it anyways. You weren't going to make it at the beginning of the season anyways. The way Mickey Loomis did his contracts, if you would have said, hey, we're going to rebuild, I would have more faith in you. But no, you said, hey, we're going to compete, and you just kept pushing them contracts back, and you keep digging your hole deeper than it already was. We were this close to filling it up. But now, Mickey Loomis, you've dug yourself. You frankly dug your grave because New Orleans Saints fans are going to be coming for your head. We're ruining the young talent we have at our coaching staff because of the horrible roster additions Mickey Loomis has been making. But let's see, Ty, if me and you can make it a little bit better. Now, we are going to go defensive end at number 9. Excuse me, we were 14 last year. Mm-hmm. Number 9, we're going to defensive end. I called the tackle at the 3.0 last year. We went tackle. We're going in this time. So I'm going to let you discuss what you think we should go at edge, who you like, who is going to be available at number 9. Let's keep that clear, because someone like Abdul Carter is probably not going to be there. So who do you like in the edge position? Who do you want to become a New Orleans Saint? And who do you think the New Orleans Saints are actually going to draft at 9? Take it away, Ty.
I would say at pick 9, right, the Saints are going to have free will on whoever they want to take at edge. If we think they're going to go edge, I think they're going to have free will outside of Abdul Carter. He should be taken before us. If he's not, good golly, take Abdul Carter. You got to win at pick 9. But assuming that he's going to get picked ahead of us, the Saints will have free will for whoever they want to pick, minus him. I really like James Pierce. I haven't watched as much of like the, pro day stuff and things like that, but, I watch a lot of college football. What he did this year was absolutely impressive. I mean, he was huge to the Tennessee defensive line. And I really, really liked him. I like Nick Scorton a lot. I liked him a lot at Texas A&M. I think he could be – those two are really good. And, and then also, Mykel Williams is also an interesting guy there. Georgia defensive linemen have fared pretty well the past couple of years and when they've been taken in the first round. And so, I think you wouldn't be stupid to take Mykel Williams at all. He might not be graded as high as maybe Pierce is, or maybe, Mike Green is also somebody to talk about from Marshall. Shamar Stewart, another A&M edge. It wouldn't be stupid to take Mykel Williams, especially with, the success that Georgia defensive linemen and defensive players really have had in the NFL over the past couple of years. They're just a great program, other than the speeding problems over there in Athens. But, Kirby Smart knows how to develop defensive guys, and his staff over there knows how to develop defensive guys for the next level. Not just that, and they can win championships too. So, I would like us to go either Pierce or either Mykel Williams. That is who I want us to draft at pick number 9. Obviously, if Abdul Carter's not available, I want Pierce or I want Mykel Williams. I think those two are more than ready to play in the NFL. With the Saints, I think you'd be dumb not to take an edge right here. You just signed Chase Young to that deal, and I'm not sure the exact numbers on it, but I know Connor and I thought it was kind of stupid, the amount of money we gave him for kind of a underwhelming year last year. And then, Cam Jordan going to retire soon, right? So and his production has declined slowly. So you're going to need an edge. I think you have to draft edge here. In my opinion, I think you go Pierce or I think you go Mykel Williams.
That's your final answer.
Yeah. Did you want a specific player? Or
that's fine. What you just told me is perfectly fine, because I'm going to get real specific enough.
You go ahead.
Abdul Carter would be great. If we could take him at number 9, man, I'd be jumping off the roof. I would
too. I'd be jumping up and down
ecstatic.
In Green Bay.
I would pass out,
I'll be there.
But I wouldn't throw up. So this is the deal. James Pierce Jr. is your best case scenario. That's who I think is your number 2, if he's there. If you look at my past 2 mock drafts, I have him going just above us to number 8. Mm-hmm. If it gets to the point where these teams, this edge class is deep. If it gets to the point where these teams in the top 10 think, hey, we'll get an edge later on, and they don't draft one, that'll be money for the New Orleans Saints. I'm telling you what, because once you get past those two, you got some interesting prospects. Mykel Williams is up there. Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. I like Mike Green a lot. What he did in college, I like him a lot. He was at the Senior Bowl, stepped on the field, took a breath, won every single battle he went against, and stepped off the field. And he was done for the whole week. Didn't play in the game, didn't have to.
That's why he's graded so high.
That's why he's so – I would not be upset. Now, if you look at the mock – to be fair, colleges do have kind of an influence where these guys went to school. Obviously, you're taking a guy from Tennessee or Georgia. Those are SEC schools, these big defensive players. You're going to take a chance because you say, hey, it worked out for these guys in the NFL. It might work out for us. This is what the New Orleans Saints are thinking, Ty. They're not going James Pierce Jr. because he probably won't be there. If he is, grab him. They're probably not going to go Mykel Williams because I think the guy they're going to draft is a better prospect. They're not going to go Nick Scorton because he's not even the best on his team. And they're not going to go to Mike Green because of the college he went to. Let's think like Mickey Loomis for a second. Not that I agree with this pick. I'm going to tell you who the New Orleans Saints are going to draft. Mel Kiper, when it comes to mock drafts, I don't necessarily agree with what he has to say. I watch him a little bit, but I love his prospects. The way he does prospects, Mel Kiper, he's the guy to listen to. He takes the cake. Field Yates is his successor, just about. They always come together and make their mock drafts. But I agree with what Field Yates said about number 9. We're taking an edge, Ty. Earlier, I said Nick Scorton wasn't the best on his team. He was, but not anymore. You have a guy named Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M Aggie. You didn't know I was going to go this. I told you said his name before the show, and you didn't actually say his name. Shamar Stewart will be drafted to the New Orleans Saints. This might be the biggest project edge in the first round. But the Saints are known for taking swings and risk when it comes to edges in the draft. Let's look back at some other draft years. But before I do that, in 3 years with Texas A&M, this is Shamar Stewart. The biggest knock on him is his production. Is he going to be able to produce at the next level? Because he just didn't do that in college. 65 total tackles, 4 passes defended, 4.5 sacks, and 12 tackles for loss. That is what he did in 3 years at A&M.
Yeah.
You look at that and you're like, well, dang, those are kind of interior lineman stats because that's what he played a lot. When you have Nick Scorton on the outside, you tend to shift inside. That's what Shamar Stewart played a lot. They ended up trying him a lot at edge this year, and that's what people are looking at, Shamar Stewart as an edge, because this is where he had the most success. Let's look back at who the Saints drafted in the first round not too long ago in our lifetime, Ty. 2021. You know who we drafted then? Does that ring a bell? Peyton Turner out of Houston.
Yeah.
What did Peyton Turner do in 4 years in New Orleans? Only came up 5 sacks. Okay? Marcus Davenport, 2018.
Yeah,
biggest risk you probably could talk about. UTSA, that's where he came from. Averaged 4.5 sacks, not even. 4.3 in 5 years with the Saints. Okay? You talk about these guys. You are drafting these guys as edges. Ty, what did these two guys play more of in New Orleans?
Well, they played more inside.
They played more inside, correct. If you are going to draft an edge like Shamar Stewart, and you have the chance to play him on the inside, which you will probably do because of your recent history, we have Cameron Jordan, and you know they love Cameron Jordan. They're going to keep him. You just signed Chase Young. Where does that leave someone like Shamar Stewart? Shamar Stewart is a successor. He's the guy that's going to come up when Cameron Jordan's gone, when some of these guys are gone. But if you want a guy that you're going to put interior like you did with Peyton Turner, like you did with Marcus Davenport, Shamar Stewart is your guy. Now you look at him and you say, okay, Shamar Stewart's a little heavier. Per ESPN in the NFL Combine, Shamar Stewart ranked in at 290 pounds. Peyton Turner was 270 and Davenport was 265. You have a little bit of a heavier guy. But this is the deal. Should you decide, we're going to try him a little bit at interior, what he did in college a lot of. I don't think that's a bad move. The New Orleans Saints, I'm telling you right now, is looking all over Shamar Stewart. Big project player. Big risk. Well, what'd you do in the years prior? You took big risks. You took those swings. You took guys that didn't go to an SEC school. I'm telling you, there's bias when these teams go into draft. I know there's that SEC bias, regardless of what people like to say. Shamar Stewart has the New Orleans Saints written all over him. And I'm telling you, if I'm thinking like Mickey Loomis, if I'm thinking like the New Orleans Saints, you're going to draft a guy like Shamar Stewart. Was that a compelling enough argument for you, Ty?
Yeah, it is. I mean, he does have, he's got the experience inside. What do the Saints have inside other than Brian Brzee? Got nobody.
Exactly.
You got nobody. So, I mean, they could do that. Do I think they will? But you've had really a good – but, hey, you've had good success with your mock drafts recently, and last year you had good success with your mock drafts. So I do trust you when it comes, to evaluating how NFL front offices will think when it comes draft time. You make a good point for that, and I think he could. I don't know. I mean, it's just he shot up the draft board, right?
Shot up,
but
like a freaking rocket.
I don't understand. There's no production behind him in college for me to be able to back that enough. And for me as a Saints fan, when I'm standing there in Green Bay watching the draft, in 2 weeks, the draft's in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks about 2 weeks. When I'm standing there, and if I hear Shamar Stewart, and if James Pierce is available, or even if Mykel Williams is available, I'm probably not going to be as happy, just because in the back of my head, I don't understand. As a Saints fan, I don't understand why you would draft a project guy when you need immediate help, right? Because Cam Jordan is probably going to retire next year, but he's more liable to get injured. I had trouble saying that. More liable to get injured. I think you need immediate help right there. He would, and Mykel Williams or Pierce would be immediate help behind, and if not, maybe they start over Cam Jordan or something like that. But I think they would be more of a help immediately than Shamar Stewart would be. But you bring up a good point. Can't just think like fans, right? Got to think, especially with you doing your own mock draft, got to think about, what the NFL or the Saints front office will do. I think you make a good point for it, and I can see why they would do that. So I don't mind that pick, but going back and tying into it. And I want to hear your thoughts on that too. As a Saints fan, how would you feel if we drafted Shamar Stewart? Take all of your mock draft stuff aside and what you're doing and trying to be as correct as possible stuff aside. As a New Orleans Saints fan, how would you feel if we drafted Shamar Stewart at 9, seeing that we'll just say in this instance that Pierce and every other defensive edge is on this board except for forgetting his name now, Abdul Carter. How would you feel as a Saints fan if we drafted Shamar Stewart?
I'm going to be frank. It would scare me 100%, because for me, I know there are better options out there. But if I'm really thinking like the New Orleans Saints, and I'm looking at these other edges, and I'm like, look, they're not going to play anyways at the edge position. I might as well not draft them. If I'm going to have somebody take reps inside, like a Shamar Stewart, maybe like a Mike Green, that's who I'm going to draft. Somebody that can get experience on the inside, then shift their way to the out. Somebody like Aaron Donald, one of the most versatile D linemen we've seen in history. Dude could play it all on the D line. It didn't matter where he was. Dude was still going to find production.
Chris Jones.
Chris Jones. Prime example. There are projects, players, and prospects that maybe you want to turn into some of these guys to be these versatile players. If you have another Cameron Jordan, as good as Cameron Jordan has been, he wasn't always the answer. You had somebody like Trey Hendrickson in New Orleans, and you didn't keep him because you thought Cam Jordan was the answer. And then it ends up we don't have the depth to sustain a defense in New Orleans. If you are going to draft a guy to take interior reps, to eventually shift outside until you find that replacement, I think it's a fantastic idea to draft someone like Shamar Stewart or Mike Green. As a fan, it would scare me to hear Shamar Stewart's name that high. But if they could give me an argument like I'm giving you right now, and they could tell me, look, we're drafting him because of this. I had to take my time with Fuaga. It wasn't an immediate satisfaction with Fuaga last year when I heard his name called. It scared me a little bit because I knew Jared Verse was still there. In this situation, it might be a little bit scarier because now there are several options to go. I like the wide receiver route. Well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go edge. And if your idea for an edge is to teach him to be versatile to where you have depth on all areas of the D-line, great. So be it. Draft the guy who you think fits that idea and that narrative the best. If it's Shamar Stewart, draft him. If it's Mike Green, draft him because these guys aren't falling out the first round. These guys, as good as this edge class is, a lot of people are looking at them too. Draft the guy that fits your agenda the best and bring him to New Orleans.
Yeah. Hey, quick question. I know
Yes,
you
sir.
don't want to spoil your 3.0. How many edges do you really think can be drafted potentially in this first round? I mean, I think you're looking at probably at least 6. Would you say at the very least 6?
I have 6 drafted. Yes. Now,
Yeah,
I could see someone like Jack Sawyer sneaking in if people like him.
Yeah. But you have, I mean, like you said, with it being such a deep class, I mean, even you get 6 drafted, and you still got guys like Sawyer. You got guys, I'm going to butcher his last name.
Princely Uman Mielen.
Yeah, not him too. But you have him from Ole Miss. But you got the other Ohio State edge, JT Tula. I'm going to mess it up. But we know everybody knows who we're talking about. Him from Ohio State. You've got so many, you get so many edges.
It's deep, man.
It is absolutely insane.
Draft 2 of them. I don't care.
Oh, you could. You could. You definitely could. You definitely could. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see what we do. But yeah, it would kind of scare me if we went Stewart, and I agree with you on that from a fan standpoint. But I can understand wanting to get a guy in there that at least has some experience inside, and then will be able to move outside because A&M did that with him this past year. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. But back to, I don't think we should take Shedeur though. I think we should definitely settle on edge.
Well, regardless of who the New Orleans Saints decide to settle with, let's settle down and channel our inner Ricky Williams. Because although Nate's not here, I will continue and do the honors of the last segment and fulfill that need for finishing the breakdown. So, without further ado, let me introduce new week, new chapter. All right, Ty. Pull up the scripture.
I'm waiting on you to do it, man. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah, you don't have access to you. That's right. All right.
No, I don't.
Just
I don't.
Nate usually tells me to do it, so I just gotta kind of get in his role. So
I can read it for you if you want me to.
No, that's okay.
If it's on the screen.
It will be on the screen. If you want to read it, you can. I don't care. With your nice broadcast voice.
I can read it for you. I can read it for you. You're just going to have to pull it up.
All right.
All right. So we, this week, are out of the book of Romans 8, verses 12 through 14. If those verses say, "So then, brothers, we are debtors, I'll make sure I said that right, not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God." That is our verse on New Week, new chapter, Connor.
Thank you, Ty. I have it as a ticker at the bottom for those that missed it. I have so much to say, and I'm going to try to keep it short. But these past couple of weeks have been epiphanic, if that's the right word for it. I had a conversation with my buddy the other day, and you know him very well. We eat lunch and have our lunch dates every week, and we get on the phone right when I get out of class because he's expecting me at a certain place at a certain time, and when I'm not there at that time, he calls me and he's like, "No, what are you doing? Making sure I'm getting there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just a little late. I'm getting out of class, whatever." I get there. He's like, "Connor, he texted me the night before. He said, we got a conversation to talk about." I said, "Okay." He starts showing me just videos and listenings of this preacher. And I'm just like, He said, "Listen to him." And he said, he's yelling at me. And he don't believe in the Trinitarian belief. He said there is nowhere in the Bible where it mentions the Holy Spirit being 3 in 1 and this, that, and the other. And it's like, man, I don't know what he's talking about, because Christianity, the core belief is that Trinitarian, that 3 in 1, that 3 persons in one of the God, which is why I put this, for all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. That's why I put this for that last verse. But I also did it for the first 2 as well, because if we live by the flesh, we die by the flesh. If we live by the Spirit, we live by the Spirit. We die by the Spirit, excuse me. And it goes back to a couple weeks ago when old Nacho Libre was on the show with me, and we talked about wolves in sheep's clothing. What it talks about false prophets. Who's going to be that false prophet? Who's going to be that wolf spreading the good news and trying to evangelize? And when this guy was on the screen, he said some good things, but he also said things that negated all credibility for preaching. And all the people just sat there and was like, yeah. They were listening to him, but they weren't really understanding. They were just hearing the words come out of his mouth, but not really listening. We talk about that distinct difference in Scripture. And listening can be a whole lot more helpful than just hearing somebody talk. And I hope if y'all are hearing me talk, you're also listening. And if you agree, if you disagree with what I have to say, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm just simply here to spread as best I can. But I do disagree with his fact that he don't believe that the Holy Spirit is of God, which is why I put that Spirit of God down below, just to prove him a little wrong. But one problem I have with him and a lot of preachers is they view the Bible as black and white. Whatever it says is how it's going to be, and there's no other room for anything else. And then I looked at my buddy. I said, man, that is just so close-minded. And I looked at him. I said, something just came to me. I said, look, we have to treat the Bible as almost a math textbook. Now, I'm not trying to diminish the value of the Bible at all, right? I'm just saying if we observe it as a math textbook, just for a second, if we just look at it and say, look, this is going to be our math textbook, we get all of the questions. We get every direction where these are going to lead us, but it might not necessarily give us the answer. It'll tell us how to get there, but it might not tell us what that destination is. And there's just certain things we're not meant to understand in this world. And I looked at him, I said, look, it tells us that 2 plus 3 equals 6, right? If we had to find out, we had the question, it says answer the questions below of addition. It says 2 plus 3 equals question mark. In the Bible, it tells us exactly what that 2 is and exactly what that 3 is. But it takes our understanding, our learning, our direction, wherever we're supposed to be led to get that number 6. It's not going to pop out and show us exactly the answer to all of our questions, to all the direction, to whatever the end might be. It's not going to show us that. But it's going to lead us in the right direction. And from there, we can decide what that question mark is. We know what the 2 is, we know what the 3 is, but it's going to take a minute before we decide that 6. So if we stop looking at everything so black and white and try to look at it from a third-party view, keep in mind the number 3, very special, we might could get into the direction God wants to lead us. But we talk about going to the end. Yesterday, and you know this, Ty, was the end of my boss's tenure here at Mississippi State. It was the end of her time here. She had been here 19, 20 years, easily, of her tenure here. She said, look, I want to go chase my dreams. And I might show this to her later, and she moved up to Washington, D.C. And I wrote her a long letter because from all the times I've walked into work, smiling, maybe a little down, she's always asking, what's up? What's going on? How are you? And I'll tell her, I'll talk to her, and she became kind of like my therapist. We just talked about my day and how it's going, give me life advice, give me just the best advice you can on school and whatever there is. And she would do that. But yesterday, she responded and she gave me kind of a letter, an essay, if you will. Not as long as what I wrote her whenever she left. But she spit a bar at the end of it. And I thought I would share that with you today because I talk about the end. It was the end of her time. And although we are all worried about that end, that direction that God leads us, we're worried about that question mark. We might have the answer to the 2, to the 3, but we might not have that 6 yet. And we're still waiting on that answer for the direction. But hey, in the words, and I'm going to say her name, I'm going to name drop her. In the words of Miss Jonda, she said, remember, it'll all work out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out, then it's not the end. I'm going to say that one more time if you didn't get that, because when she said that, it was such a bar. It dropped so well. And I was like, man, even on her last day, she's giving me advice. She's giving me a bar. It'll all work out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. So, Ty, I know we've gotten a little over, and I apologize. But if you'll allow me to kind of end it off in a prayer, it would be a privilege and an honor for me to end off today's show.
You get right ahead.
You don't mind. Yes, sir. So, Lord, I thank you for letting us come here to talk a little bit about football, but to most importantly, talk about you. Lord, I ask you that you lead us in whatever direction that you have for us, that you show us how to get there and lead us and show us that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Lord, I ask you that maybe whenever you show us the end and show us the truth, that we'll be satisfied, that we'll know it's the end, and that we've worked to get there. Lord, I thank you for giving us answers, for giving us advice, for putting those seeds in my life into our lives and just watching them grow. Lord, I ask that you continue to do so, continue to lead us until we find that end, until everything works out, as Miss Jonda says. And until then, it is in your Son's holy, perfect, and precious name that I say, amen.
Amen.
All right, Ty. I always ask Nate if there's anything he'd like to say before we end this very special episode of The Breakdown.
Well, I enjoyed it. It was very fun. I miss coming back on, so it's good to be on. I appreciate you letting me be on. I appreciate TDT Media for allowing me to be on. So very fun. I tell you what, I'm excited though I mentioned this a little bit. I am excited for the draft, obviously. And then, like I said, I mentioned this a little bit. I'll be at the draft in Green Bay with a couple of my buddies. So hopefully that'll be a fun time. Hopefully the Saints don't ruin my NFL draft experience. But well, I tell you what, I mean, it'll be cool though just to be able to go and see, not just being at the NFL draft, but be able to see Lambeau Field and stuff like that. And we'll be flying into Chicago and then driving up. So maybe being able to go over and see some, maybe like Soldier Field for the Bears and, maybe Wrigley and all that stuff. So I'm excited for that coming up. But no, I appreciate you letting me be on. And also excited I know this is a football show, and we talked about this pre-show. WrestleMania is pretty soon, man. Pretty soon.
We did have a segment Thursday about WrestleMania, and one of the he did predict that fatal 4-way match.
Yeah, I saw that.
Predicted it.
That'll be good. I mean, that'll be a fantastic match. So, but I'm excited for that. But to wrap it up, appreciate you letting me be on. Always a pleasure being on, and had a fun time.
I appreciate you being available and just showing up. When I need you. It's a good friend and a good buddy to have. So hopefully you'll join us for our April 22nd show. We'll see what Nate has to say if he wants a lot of people on there, but it's usually just going to be me yapping about my mock draft and then getting other people's opinions. But I don't know if you've stayed long enough to go to the end. I asked Nate this. Do you know what I say at the end of each show?
Do I know what you say at the end?
Yeah. No, you don't. It's okay.
I probably don't.
It's okay. It's like a little rhyme.
Nice outro though. Is it not the X's and O's thing?
No.
Oh, you said that pre-show.
No. I'll say it.
Spit your bars. Go ahead.
So be here next week, because we will too. And don't leave us, because we won't leave you. Join us next week. We're 1 week closer to the NFL draft. Until that April 22nd, I know you're excited because I am. That mock draft 3.0 to round off the entire season until we get into the regular season. I'm your co-host, Connor Davis, without the man, the myth, the legend, the 5-year NFL veteran, Nate Ness. To my right is Mr. Ty Goldman, my partner in crime. You will see him maybe a couple more times before the draft if he likes to be on. We'll see what happens. It'll be more draft content, maybe leading up to the draft. If there's college football out there, that's what we'll talk about. But until next week, we will see you then. This has been The Breakdown, X's and O's. Goodbye.